She heard the footsteps long before she saw the door open, the sound of boots crossing floorboards above her, steady, measured, as if walking atop her own spine. Then the scrape of a rug, the soft groan of the bed frame, and the weight of someone climbing down beside her prison. The box creaked. Inside, Colleen Stan didn't move. Couldn't move. Her knees were pressed tightly to her chest, her neck angled upward, barely able to hold the weight of her head. Her arms were numb. She couldn't tell what time it was, or even what day. There was no light, no sound, no warmth. Just the wood above her face and the stale heat of her own breath trapped in the narrow space. The coffin-sized box was airtight, save for 2 small holes drilled near her face. The man who kept her there, Cameron Hooker, called her his slave. He said she no longer existed in the eyes of the law, that her name was gone, that her body was his, that if she disobeyed, the company would kill her and her family. For 7 years, she believed him, and for most of those years, she lived inside this box. Hidden beneath a bed, in a house where children laughed and played upstairs, Colleen Stan remained unseen, forgotten, folded into darkness. But before she became the woman in the box, she was something else, something achingly normal. A 20-year-old girl named Colleen, kind-hearted, quiet, adventurous in her own cautious way. In the spring of 1977, she packed a bag and stuck out her thumb on a roadside in Eugene, Oregon, heading south to California to visit friends. She'd hitchhiked before. It wasn't uncommon. This was the 70s, and freedom still felt romantic. She trusted her instincts. She told herself she could always turn down a ride if it didn't feel right. A few cars passed, then a blue Dodge Colt pulled over. Inside, a young man, clean-cut, soft-spoken. His wife sat in the passenger seat holding a baby. They smiled at her. That was the moment she said yes. And that was the moment everything began to unravel. At first, the ride felt normal. Cameron Hooker made pleasant conversation. Janice, his wife, was polite, and the baby helped Colleen feel at ease. They made a quick stop at a gas station, and something in Colleen's gut gave her pause. A flicker of unease, a whisper that told her to run. But she didn't. She got back in the car. Moments later, they pulled off the highway and onto a secluded dirt road. Cameron stopped the car. He turned around, and he pulled a knife. He forced Colleen's arms behind her back, bound her, and produced a strange object from the trunk. A heavy wooden box with padding inside, shaped to enclose her head. He placed it over her face, locked it tight, and plunged her into darkness. For hours, she sat blind, deaf, disoriented, her senses erased. When the box came off, she was in a basement, naked, shivering, chained from the ceiling. She was no longer a hitchhiker. She was a prisoner. Cameron Hooker had been preparing for this for years. Obsessed with bondage and domination, he'd drawn detailed sketches of torture devices, built elaborate restraint systems, and struck a deal with his wife. If she allowed him to take a slave, he would stop hurting her. Janice agreed. So when Colleen appeared, she became part of their agreement. Cameron's goal wasn't just control, it was obliteration of identity. He began methodically stripping away Colleen's autonomy. He renamed her Kay. He gagged her, whipped her, suspended her for hours. He starved her, burned her, and told her she was property. That she belonged to an international network called The Company, a shadowy syndicate that monitored enslaved women like her. They were always watching. If she resisted, escaped, or spoke the truth, they would kill her family. She believed it. Every word. What followed were years of calculated dehumanization. He made her sign a contract, surrendering all rights. He measured her worth by obedience. He demanded total silence. He kept her in restraints for weeks at a time. And when that wasn't enough, when he needed more control, he built the box. It was small, 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, 2 feet high. Inside was a rough carpet lining. No padding, no room to stretch, no space to shift. The box was placed under his bed. He and Janice slept on top of it, with Colleen folded beneath them. In that box, time stopped. Summers turned the space into an oven. Winters left her shivering, her breath freezing against the wood. Her joints stiffened, her muscles atrophied, her spine bent unnaturally. She couldn't sit up, couldn't turn, couldn't scream. She lay in silence, listening to the creak of the mattress above her, to the baby crying, to the couple's footsteps, to the murmur of television just beyond the walls. The world moved on, and she remained still. Cameron allowed her out only briefly each day, sometimes to eat, sometimes to be punished, sometimes to clean the house, always under strict supervision. She wasn't permitted to speak without permission. She was not to make eye contact. She was trained to smile when told, to kneel on command, to submit to anything. He told her the company was testing her, that she was lucky to be under his protection. He made her grateful for small things, a hot meal, a bath, a moment of fresh air. He let her care for the children, gave her little freedoms to foster dependency, and all the while reinforced the central lie: there is no escape. You are not safe. You are not real. Years passed. And then, perhaps most disturbingly, he began taking her outside. He took her on walks, to grocery stores. He even allowed her to visit her parents, under strict instructions to act like everything was normal. He told her if she said a word, the company would be watching. Her family would die. She believed him. There's a photograph from that visit. Colleen is smiling awkwardly beside Cameron Hooker. Her family said she seemed thinner, quieter. Office. But she didn't say anything. She returned willingly to captivity and went back into the box. More years passed. Cameron began speaking of building a dungeon, of expanding, of finding more women. He became bolder, more confident. But in Janice, something had changed. She had once been complicit. She had helped lure Colleen, helped restrain her, justified the cruelty. But after years of watching, something cracked. Guilt crept in. Her own trauma began to bubble up, and perhaps she started seeing herself in Colleen, not as a partner in control, but as another victim in a wider prison. In 1984, Janice made a choice. She told Colleen the truth. There was no company, no shadow network, no death squads. The fear that had shaped Colleen's every breath was a fabrication, a lie to keep her quiet. For the first time in 7 years, the door wasn't locked, and no one was coming for her. Colleen walked away. She got on a bus, and Cameron Hooker, so confident, so controlled, let her go, still believing she was too afraid to ever speak. But weeks later, Janice went to the police. She told everything. She led them to the box. Cameron was arrested and charged with kidnapping, rape, torture, and false imprisonment. In court, he claimed it had all been consensual, that Colleen enjoyed the bondage, that she had never been held against her will. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury saw the box. They read the slave contract. They heard Janice's testimony and listened to Colleen's story, measured, quiet, filled with agonizing detail. In 1985, Cameron Hooker was sentenced to 104 years in prison. He remains incarcerated. Colleen Stan faded from the spotlight. She changed her name, found work, built a life. She rarely speaks publicly. Her story is often sensationalized, reduced to headlines and horror tropes. But the truth of what she endured is something far deeper and far more terrifying. It wasn't just captivity, it was conditioned obedience. A dismantling of identity so complete that she thanked her abuser for keeping her alive. She smiled in photographs. She kissed her captor's children. She waited patiently in a box while life went on without her. And yet, She survived. She held on to some ember of herself in the dark, and when the lie fell away, she stepped out. She walked free. She existed. She endured. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. If you enjoyed this true story, join us next time, if you dare.